Your dog does not know it is going to die. At least, that is what we have always assumed. That the awareness of mortality, the knowledge that you specifically, personally, will one day stop existing, is uniquely human. That it is the price of our intelligence, the thing we got when we became conscious enough to understand our own existence. The burden no other animal carries. But the science is no longer so certain. And what researchers have discovered in the last 2 decades about how animals understand death is strange enough and moving enough to make you question everything you thought you knew about the minds living alongside us. Start with what death awareness actually requires. To know you will die, you need several things simultaneously. You need a concept of self, the understanding that you are a distinct individual who exists. You need a concept of time, the understanding that there is a future that you will inhabit. You need a concept of death itself, the understanding that living things stop living. And you need the ability to connect all three, to understand that the self that exists now will not exist in the future. For a long time, scientists assumed that only humans possessed all 4 of these simultaneously. That assumption is now under serious pressure. Let us start with elephants. Elephants are one of only a handful of species that pass the mirror test. When a mirror is placed in front of an elephant, it recognizes the reflection as itself. Not another elephant, itself. This is considered one of the strongest indicators of self-awareness in the animal kingdom. And elephants do something with death that is unlike almost any other animal on Earth. They return to the bodies of their dead. Not once, not accidentally, deliberately, repeatedly, sometimes years after the death. Researchers have documented elephants approaching the bones of deceased family members and touching them carefully with their trunks, spending extended time with them, showing what observers consistently describe as something resembling grief. In one documented case, a matriarch who died in Kenya was visited repeatedly by her family over the following weeks. Her daughter visited the body every day for nearly a month. What is happening in that elephant's mind when she returns to her mother's bones, day after day, in a landscape full of other things to do and other places to be? We cannot say with certainty, but the behavior requires, at minimum, an understanding that something that was alive is now permanently different, that a specific individual is gone, and that the going matters. Chimpanzees go further. In 2009, researchers observed a chimpanzee mother in Zambia carrying the mummified body of her dead infant for weeks after its death. She groomed it. She carried it. She protected it. When researchers gently attempted to examine the body, she retrieved it. Other chimpanzee mothers have been documented doing the same. In 2017, a chimp named Noelle at a sanctuary in Cameroon was filmed carefully cleaning the teeth of her dead son's body with a grass tool. The same tool behavior used in social grooming among the living, applied with apparent tenderness to the dead. What does this tell us? At minimum, it tells us that chimpanzees understand that something has changed, that the individual is no longer responsive, that the normal relationship has been disrupted in a profound and permanent way. Whether they understand that this will happen to them too, we cannot say. But the emotional depth of the response is not easy to dismiss. Crows hold what researchers have called funeral gatherings. When a crow dies, other crows, sometimes dozens, will gather around the body. They do not touch it, they do not eat it, they simply gather and make noise, and then leave. For a long time, this was assumed to be about threat assessment, learning what killed the crow to avoid the same fate. And there is evidence for this interpretation. But researchers at the University of Washington found that crows remember the faces of humans they associate with the death of other crows and will mob and alarm call those individuals for years afterward. The crow is not just assessing a threat. It is remembering a death. It is connecting a specific individual to a specific loss. And it is acting on that memory for years. Dogs are perhaps the most interesting case of all. Because dogs have lived alongside humans for 30,000 years and developed, in that time, a sensitivity to human emotional states that is arguably more sophisticated than any other animals. Dogs do not pass the mirror test in the traditional sense, but they show behaviors around death, both animal death and human death, that suggest something more than simple confusion about the absence of a familiar individual. There are hundreds of documented cases of dogs refusing to leave the graves of deceased owners, returning to the same spot, lying on the earth above where a person is buried, for months, for years. The most famous is Hachiko, the Akita dog in Japan who waited at the train station where his owner had always returned from work every day for 9 years after the owner died suddenly and never came back. This is not an animal that does not understand death. This is an animal that understands loss so profoundly that it restructures its entire existence around it. So do animals know they will die? The honest answer is, we do not know. We cannot access the subjective experience of another mind. We cannot ask. What we can say is this: some animals clearly understand that death is permanent. Some animals clearly grieve. Some animals clearly distinguish between the living and the dead in ways that suggest they understand something profound has changed. Whether any of them lie awake at night knowing that they too will one day be the one who does not come back, whether any of them carry the specific existential weight that humans carry, we genuinely do not know. But the distance between them and us on this question is almost certainly smaller than we have always assumed. And there is something humbling in that. The awareness of death is the thing we thought made us most alone in the universe, the burden we carry that no other creature shares. But if an elephant returns to her mother's bones for a month, touching them gently in the African dark, if a chimpanzee mother carries her dead child for weeks, refusing to accept what her body already knows, if a dog waits at an empty station for 9 years, then perhaps we are not as alone in this as we thought. Perhaps the knowledge of loss, in some form, in some depth, is older than language, older than us. Perhaps grief is not the price of human consciousness. Perhaps it is simply the price of love. And love, it turns out, is everywhere.